All right, so I've got a slightly controversial video here that I think is going to actually help a ton of people, and it's going to upset a few people as well, but we're going to avoid, as per usual, talking about theory. We're only going to talk about things that have worked for me and things that I know will increase people's chances of making sales. So everything in this video is geared towards spending less time and less money while increasing your chances of making sales. So I'm going to be using my own books, my own campaigns as examples as we go through this video. But we're going to take a look at the quickest route to making more sales by creating ugly books. So by ugly, I basically just mean simple books, books that don't require much investment, but still give you a good chance of making those sales. So that section is going to be kind of a mini crash course that I think is going to change your perspective, and it's going to upset a few people as well. From there, we're going to take a look at the best ugly niches that you can get into to actually go for this pursuit. So by niches, what I'm talking about here is the very broad niches that you can get into. We're not going to identify very specific niches because I don't think that really helps people that much. So from there, we'll take a look at a way that you can spend less money on your book covers specifically for these type of niches. We'll look at a kind of hack that you can use to spend less and create more covers. We're also going to go into something that I've never spoken about before on my channel. We're going to show real results for a click-through rate method that can help you select the best converting book covers to use for series of books. So everything in this video is about creating these ugly, simple series of books, okay? From there, toward the end of the video, we're going to talk about where I think investments are best made. So in terms of time and money, going to keep it as per usual, 100% real with my thoughts on this. So let's get into this, and we'll talk about the quickest route to making more sales. And this is going to be the kind of crash course section. So make sure that you focus on this section here. But I'm going to preface this by saying, and this is important that I do so, that the great thing about Amazon is that you can treat this however you want. It can be your side hustle, it can be your hobby, or it can be your premium brand pursuits where you create these wonderful, expensive books that you can eventually sell your account down the line for six figures or whatever the cool thing that people talk about is, right? So the problem that I think people have is that what they do is that they try and go straight in to this ultra premium high quality over quantity mode where they publish these premium books. They spend lots of money on the interiors, lots of time, and they end up spending so much money on ads as well, but they only actually create around 4 to 5 books. Now for me, that's a great pursuit. I love that side of things, but it's not the way that I started, and it's not the way that adds money to my bottom line the quickest and easiest. Now, the way that adds money and sales to the bottom line quickest and easiest is by creating more books in these ugly niches. And really what I think 95% or more of people watching this video should be doing is starting with this more simplistic route where they're spending less money, less time. And then when they've proven to have something that works, then they start slowly transitioning toward a more premium brand of things where you can work on your website, your short form video content, your capturing of your emails, your different advertising strategies, all these fancy things that people talk about and make look so glamorous. I think that should be the kind of edging toward the end goal of your publishing journey. What you're missing out on is actually making sales. And when you start making sales on Amazon by publishing more books, you actually start learning more as well. Like none of this shit that people tell you on YouTube, you're not going to learn anything unless you just start doing things yourself, okay? Things that you will find out naturally that you just can't learn through me, through anybody else on YouTube. And that's why this pursuit is the quickest and it is the best, okay? So again, here's what I'm going to say that I think is going to upset people is to forget about your back-end keywords, your fancy advertising campaigns, your niche research tools, your A+ content, your review swapping, your weird high content book strategies that don't work for low content books. Forget about it. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I don't think you should avoid it completely, but it's what I'm talking about is the emphasis that people put onto these things, okay? So drop the emphasis for those things here and focus on uploading more books, okay? We went through this phase a couple years ago, I think, where people were uploading more books, and all of a sudden people like me, idiots like me, came along and said, focus on your quality over your quantity, right? And then everyone had this big freak out and like, oh, you can't publish more books on Amazon because it makes you a spammer, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's what I've always found to be the reality in anything is that when you have two extremes, so for example, we have people, especially back then, who were just uploading thousands of books per month. You have that one extreme there. And then you have another extreme where you have people saying, oh, you need to focus on your quality of your quantity. And they spend 600 years on every single book and whatever. And they have like their quality. They don't worry about the niches or the keywords, all those things. They don't believe in that. Now, both pursuits, in my eyes, they don't work. Now, for me, the reality of this is always going to lie in the middle of the two. You have to get the quality and the quantity going for you to make sales. Now, quality is not to be mistaken for having a beautiful book cover. That's not what quality is. Quality is about entering into good niches, having sufficient book covers that do their job whilst giving the customer what they want. That is quality. People mix the two up. So we're looking in the next section at some niches that you get into to do this. But here's the crash course for you without me rambling on too much. So here's what you're going to do. If you want to take the emphasis away from all these fancy eyewash things that don't actually make that much difference in the long term to your book sales, and you want to put emphasis onto the things that work, upload more books. And then here's what you're going to do. You're going to use Amazon's search bar to help you find the title and subtitle for your book. So if you go into Amazon, you start typing in what your book is, and then if Amazon starts populating the search results with a search term that you think is going to be suitable for your book, use that somewhere in the title for your book, and then use other variants of keywords for your subtitle. Obviously, you don't keyword stuff. And then what you do is that you run advertising campaigns, ideally just automatic ads, and then you start getting sales from the automatic ads, which is then going to get your book ranked onto Amazon. Whether you stay ranked or not is a different matter. So here's what you're going to do. If you're creating these type of simple books, you need to have a series of these. You have to have more. They have to be in the series. They have to be under the same pen name. But what you're going to be doing is leaving the ones going that are winners. So you're going to leave the advertising campaigns on for the ones that are winning, and you're going to cut off the ones that are losing. Now, realistically, what you can expect to find is that you're going to get about 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 of those books selling. So there's going to be someone in the comments saying that they make every book sell, or they don't, or they've published 1 million books and they've not had a single sale. I'm talking in general. Like if you have a framework that you're working with that has been proven to work, then you're getting into niches and you have decent book covers, then you can expect 1 in 5, 1 in 10 to make long-term profits. Okay. And I don't want to be that guy, but I think it's kind of like business 101, isn't it? Like you have to have more products out there. You just have to. There's no one on, if you ever watch anyone's income report, nobody has 5 to 10 books and they're making a ton of money, right? It just doesn't happen. And that leads me on to the whole quality over quantity kind of meme that people have pushed for a very long time now, because it sounds impressive to say you should be focusing on quality over the quantity of your books. And the notion of this is absolutely fine. Like it makes sense that a better quality book is going to be superior than just whacking out hundreds and hundreds of books. But like I said before, there has to be this middle ground where we are creating good books, but we have to be creating more of them. Okay, so it's not the quality over quantity that's saying it does make sense. It's how people act upon that information. And like I said at the start of this section, what a lot of people are doing is they're putting tons and tons of time and money into just a few books, and then they're losing tons of money and time, getting demoralized, and then they are quitting. I've done over the last 2.5 years of having YouTube, I've done maybe 50 private videos for people, and I've seen a lot of your guys' books from the live chats that I've done. And so many people are doing this. Like we have people that are creating like three or four like word search books or 3 or 4 maze books and spending thousands of dollars per month on these books and just losing tons of money. No, these niches, you need to have more books in them whilst giving the customers what they want. So again, what we're going to be doing is uploading more books into niches with traffic going to them that have got ugly book covers, simplistic interiors, and then you're going to let your advertising campaigns pick the winners for you. I'm going to have a section on this here that is going to give you a strategy that I've used for notebooks, this type of book that will help you reduce your advertising spend and pick out winners that you can continue to work on. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But The upshot of this section is spend less money and publish more books. I promise you, if you are spending $1,000 a month on advertising campaigns for 3 books, 3 low content books, 3 activity books, or word search books, or maze books, or early education books, whatever they are, you are losing. And the thing is, if you even if you look at like premium brands, so like Jade Summer or Humble Math, for example, none of these guys have 5 to 10 books. They just don't. They have lots of books because you need to put the book out there, you need to test it, and then you need to move on to another book. You need to keep testing because luck is a factor, but you have to work within a framework that's been proven to work to increase your chances of getting lucky. Okay. So hopefully this is making sense now, where we can get into these niches where the investment basically is lower. So let's take a look at some of these niches where you can create multiple book covers for a cheaper amount, where you can create the interiors for cheaper, and where you can actually niche down or niche sideways and do all those great things to target more specific areas of those niches. I'm losing my voice, but let's get into this. We're going to look at things like specific puzzle books, for example, and I've got in brackets here that I'm going to be showcasing my Christmas word search from a couple years ago. We're going to take a look at things like large print books, and by that I mean this could pertain to coloring books. It's not the correct terminology, but this is something that people do actively search for, which is large print coloring books. Now, when you're creating these type of simple or large print books, as they sometimes call them, the investment cost, if you are outsourcing them, is going to be less than if you're creating complex adult coloring books, for example. So books for seniors is another one here. So that can branch off into different areas like activity books. It can branch off into things like short stories, coloring books, word searches. You can pretty much target seniors in so many different niches. And here's a quick tip. What I found from targeting seniors with some of my books is that you can actually increase the price and sell your books for more to this audience. Specific early education books as well makes for a great opportunity to create dog ugly looking book covers but actually make sales. Again, going to use my own books as examples, and we're going to use this as a chance to actually showcase the success rate of books. So no bullshitting here. I'm happy to admit when I fail with my books, it's just reality. And then we have what I've put in red, low content books that are typically gifted. So we're talking things that are going to sell during like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, and seasonal events like that. I put it in red because I just don't do it. I don't like doing it. I've got some success with this, but the amount of books that I had to publish was much more than I feel comfortable doing. So I don't necessarily recommend low content books, even though I know people are having success with them. So these are all great niches that we can get into, where we can create these ugly book covers or simple book covers, where we can create more books and increase our chances of making sales. So let's give an example from the Christmas word search that I showcased a couple of years ago now. So I've managed to find my book from a couple of years ago, and if you've watched my channel for a while, you remember that I showcased this word search, this Christmas word search. Now, this book did okay. During Christmas of 2022, it made, I think, maybe 100 sales. It kind of basically broke even because of the amount that I spent on the book cover. So this is a fully illustrated book cover. I can't remember how much I spent. It was way too much because it meant that I just didn't see any return on this book. And what I did in that video when I was showcasing this is that I took a look at this book cover and then I paired it versus some of the other book covers in the niche. And what I said was, look at my book cover. It's been illustrated. It's better than other people's books. And actually, it's not. Like, maybe it's more beautiful, but it's not niche relevant. So that's just what I'm talking about when it comes to quality over quantity being misunderstood. I think this is a quality book cover. Now, do I think it's an effective book cover? No, I don't think it is. What I should have done when it comes to publishing these type of books is to have published more, because I was using software to create this. Okay, and the software is not that cheap to create these type of the word search software that I was using. I can't remember how much it was, but I spent a fair bit on that software, and I should have made more books. Like, it doesn't make any sense to create one book, spend $100 of advertising campaign to rank the book, and then only make like 100 sales from it, and then have the book die off. Okay, so in that video I showcased like, hey, look, my book cover, it's better than this, the competitor's book. So if you look at like some of the typical Christmas word searches, how they are presented, like this one here, for example, they're really simple, they're really boring, they're ugly, book covers, but these are what work in these niches. And some people even pointed out that in that video, they were saying, actually, I prefer the simple looking book covers as opposed to yours. It's not as effective. Okay. And what I should have been doing is spending less money on those book covers and creating more books in this niche. So, what I would have done looking back now is to create Christmas word search for kids, to create Christmas word search in large print, to create them for adults, to create them for seniors, to create a variation, so like a winter word search as well, or like a Santa word search or something more specific, and just create more of these books. Because if you have a software that you're using and you're not creating multiple books with it, you're just wasting money, because you can't invest into one piece of software and create one book from it. It doesn't make any sense. Now, that would have been a much better pursuit than trying to focus on this quality one book that I'm publishing and just try and stand out through virtue of quality. Because I think for the most part, it's not actually the best way to spend your time and money. So let me give you a couple of examples here when it comes to creating these type of books. Now, this person here, for example, they are creating multiple books in the same niche. So they obviously have a software that is helping them to create these type of books, but they've created 27 books. Now, do you think every single one of these books is selling? Do you think that every single one of these books has got a ton of advertising spend going to them every single month? I don't think so. I think I actually really admire the person doing this, because they're doing things in a way where they're reducing the amount of spend, they're making the most of their investment, which is obviously going to be the software, and they're putting their books out there in a decent volume, but they're still hitting that quality in terms of what is effective. Now, eventually what they find is that a couple of their books are actually selling really well. So rank 32,000 is really good, and they probably have this one at around 50,000, and this one's probably about 100,000 if I had to guess from looking at this. 140,000. Okay, so they have like 3 or 4 books that are actually selling out of the 27 that they've got here. Okay, now what they're doing is they're creating more books. It's factual. This works. You have to have more books out there. Okay, so what they're not doing is they didn't create 4 books and then start blasting tons and tons of tons and tons, thousands of dollars onto advertising campaigns every single month, trying to be the absolute best book in the niche and crush all these big publishers and have their one main book that's going to make them a ton of money. They haven't done that because it won't work like that. For some people, it will. But realistically, having just a few books and spending tons of money and time on them is not going to work. You have to put your books out there, test them in the marketplace, and leave the winners going while switching off the losers. So we'll take a look at an advertising strategy that you can use if you're publishing these type of books in just a second. So what I'm saying, I hope what I'm getting at here is making sense, is that if you cannot invest, if you're creating like this premium brand, if you can't invest into creating more books, and spending more money and time on that pursuit pisses you off and makes you stressed, then don't do it. Do something that requires less investment. So again, I'm going to give you another example from my own books here. And actually, there's one thing here, books for seniors. I actually wrote, when I was starting off my hardback pursuits, or my paperback pursuits in 2018, I actually wrote a few books that were geared toward seniors that were in large print, and they had extremely simplistic book covers. And I did like 10 of them, and about 2 of them were about 8 of them, and about 2 of them were the ones that actually made sales. Okay, so I'm going to give you actual examples from a couple of my early education books here. Then we're going to move on to this really crazy book cover section that I promise you is going to change your perspective on creating book covers in these niches. So I use one of my early education books as an example here. Now, this book, I think it made well over 1,000 sales in the last sort of couple of years, but it's died a very painful death because the price increase with the amount of pages that I had meant that I had to up the price to $9.77, which meant that the book tanked and stopped making sales. Okay, and also because I showcased this, a lot of people copied pretty much exactly this, and that's why I think I'm really not going to show off many books anymore going forward, because there's always someone that has to ruin it for everyone else, right? So here's what I'm saying. Obviously, I have software that lets me create these type of early education books. Now, here's what's happened is that I've created, in the time of having this software, access to these type of software, is that I've created around 4 books so far. It's nowhere near enough, and only one of those 4 books has actually had success, which is this one here. Okay, so the other 3, one of them has made their money back, 2 of them are currently at a loss. And that's the reality. Now, what I should be doing is creating more books in this niche here, because if you look at the book cover here, it's a super ugly book cover. There's nothing beautiful about it. There's no real quality, but it's niche appropriate, right? It works and people clicked on it and people bought this book. So it's another niche that you can get into where you can create multiple books using one or two pieces of software. You can create covers for dirt cheap and you can enter into niches that have got traffic going to them. So that's something that I need to focus on, is to create more of these type of books. Now, upcoming, there's going to be a new software coming out that focuses on creating fractions. So it's the same story here where you're going to be able to create books in this niche, but you can target lots of other different areas. And the book covers, as you can see, are pretty shit. You can make them quite easily and create more books in these niches. I'll do a review for that whenever the thing comes out. We'll take a look at the opportunities, whether it's any good or not. So we'll take a look at the fraction software when it comes out. And I think this is one of the great things, especially about early education, is that if you are using software, and I know some people are just against using software for these niches, is that it speeds up a ton of time and it lets you get into different age groups, allowing you, remember, to create more books, which is super important for making the most of your investment. If you're using software, make sure you use it and create multiple books where it makes sense to do so. We'll talk about that in my next video, but for now, let's just carry on looking at these other niches. So hopefully this is making sense now. And to give you this scenario for some perspective, what's going to be the better pursuit purely in terms of just making more book sales on Amazon and putting money and time into a certain pursuit? What's going to be better? Is it going to be creating a high-end premium 2 or 3 coloring books, or high-end premium 2 or 3 word searches where you've made a website, you've spent $100 on the book cover, you've spent hundreds of dollars on the interior, you spent months creating this, you're running tons of advertising campaigns, you have an unlimited budget for your ads? What's going to be better, doing that or creating more books that you can create quicker with a lesser investment, where you can get into more niches, increase your chances of making sales? So by the time that you've made one high-end premium book, by the time that you've made that and the money that you've put into it, you could have created 15 or 20 different smaller books with shitty book covers that actually have a much higher chance of making you sales. It's an interesting perspective, and obviously there's nothing wrong, like I said before, with being ambitious and creating this brand, but I just think there's nothing wrong with doing things this way, purely in terms of making sales. So if we are creating these type of books, what we want to do to reduce our spend in total is spend less money on book covers. So we're going to go and take a look at how we can spend less money on these book covers. And also we're going to take a look at a little tip that I've never spoken about on my channel, about how we can decide which type of cover that we're going to be using for our series of books to give us the best return. I'm going to use real examples of my books in this section. This is pretty awesome stuff. So first thing here that we want to do is to work with a template. So if you take a look at things like the early education books, word searches and activity books, whatever, those type of books, they tend to all follow a same kind of template format. So for example, if you're looking at, and I hate using Humble Math as the example, but no one's going to compete with them, so it doesn't really matter. But if you look at their books, they're all the same. Like, this is the same template used over and over. They're super simple, shitty covers. They got tons and tons and tons and tons of books, but they use the same. It's weird. Like, all their text is like aligned to the right hand side as well. I don't know why, but it's a case of, if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it, right? And this is a really simple way of creating more book covers in these type of niches. So the obvious way that you can do that is by creating one book cover in Canva, or to hire someone from Fiverr to do this for you, and then make sure that you have, whenever they give you the file back, that you can actually edit those, that have a template you can work with, edit them. So when it comes to creating your next book, you can just plop in the next book interior onto the front and change the title for it, for example. So I'm going to pair this with an example of one of my books in just a second. I'm going to pair this with the click-through rate method to help you pick which book cover to use as well. What you can see here, and this is something that I've been kind of slowly working on in the background, is creating my own book covers using Canva. Now what you can see is that the amount of pages that I have in this is just ridiculous. It's because I'm just using the same template and just creating different book covers for the niches that I'm going to be creating books in. I'm not going to reveal these niches because people just copy them like it's insane. So, but as you can see, the point is that I'm using this template. It's a really basic template that we can use. And then when it comes to creating the next book, we can use this same template. But of course, we're going to be changing the niche or the grade or whatever type of book that we're creating, but use that same template. Now, in Canva, I do this. I make sure that I'm not using any of their pro elements or any of their elements at all. After all that kind of books being banned and blocked or whatever, I only use Canva when it comes to text and placing my images. Like, I don't use it for their elements. I just don't recommend people do that anyway. So why have I picked this book cover layout to go for? So I'm going to show you this little click-through rate hack method technique that's going to help you in the future after you've actually published some books and got data back from Amazon. We're going to do this by heading into our advertising accounts now. So I would like to pair this versus one of the other books that I've done for a case study, but alas, some fucker always has to copy them. So obviously I won't be showing off every single book. Okay, so here's what we're doing here. We're taking two books. Now, this is only relevant when you have information to work with. We're taking two books from similar niches. Okay, so we have the kindergarten workbook here, and we have a math workbook here. So the math workbook is the one that you saw at the start of this video. I don't mind showing this off because the book has died a very painful death. But what we're looking at here to help us determine what template to go for our series of books is that we're looking, as you can see on the right hand side here, the click-through rate. Now, I'm using advertising data to help me determine which book cover is getting the most attention in terms of click-through rate. Now, I looked at the layout for this addition and subtraction workbook, and the click-through rate is really good at 2.16%. Now, I've paired that versus another book that I have in this series, which is a kindergarten workbook, which the click-through rate is 0.3%. Now, the funny thing, the great thing here is that this book here, I spent more money, I spent more time on creating this book cover, and it's kind of more of a beautiful looking book cover. And guess what? In this niche, it doesn't work. And this is what's so great about these simple niches. Now, this one here, the addition and subtraction workbook, I hired someone for $5 for $20. They did this in about 20 minutes. Okay. Click-through rate, super good. So that means that we have this information we can work with now for our next book. Now, notice how similar this book cover looks to the addition and subtraction one. That's why we're creating the next book in this series with this layout and this color format. Okay. So there is, I will admit, there's an element of theory behind this because what we have here is a product targeting campaign, and on this one we have an automatic campaign. So I'm going to assume that a product targeting campaign is more specific. It's going to have a better click-through rate to virtue of that, but we're going to work with that data because I do think it is relevant. So the next book that we create in this series, we can use the book cover that's been proven to work, and then we can go ahead and create all these wonderful shit books and have more of them, but we can just use this template and keep making this over and over and over for the next niches that we go for. Okay, super cool stuff. All right, so let's move on to talking about spending too much money on ads, because this pursuit, we want to spend less money per book. Okay, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I'm going to give you a couple brief strategies just for your consideration. Okay, so again, let's use some real examples of advertising strategies from my account if you're creating more books and you're aiming to spend less. So let's say that you're creating multiple books, simple books like this in a series, and you want to pick out the ones and work on the ones that have the best chance of making you sales. So what I'm going to show you is an example of a notebook batch that I did. There's actually 6 notebooks that I published. I think it was maybe just over a year or so ago. There's actually 12 products in one campaign. It's got other products in there. I can't remember why I put more products in there, but the main ones are the notebooks that I made here. So I published 6 notebooks. I put them into one automatic targeting campaign, and then I just noted which ones were converting best and then turned off the ones that weren't converting. Okay, so this is truly, a lot of people don't like these type of campaigns, but if you're bulk creating, I say bulk, but like 10 books or whatever is nothing in one campaign. If you're doing these kind of easy, simple books and you're publishing more of them, and you want your campaigns to pick out the ones that are going to work for you quicker, then you can use this type of strategy where you put multiple books into one campaign and let Amazon kind of do the work for you, cut off the ones that aren't working. And then what you can do from there is that if you see specific books that are converting really well, which is what I did, like 2 of these books were converting so well that I think I created a couple manual campaigns out of these as well, which then continue to also make sales at a low cost per click and a low ACoS as well. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way that you could do this is that if you just hard budget your books for every book that you published, your advertising cost per month. So typically for like a premium book, if I've spent a long time creating it, then my advertising budget goes slightly higher because I feel more confident because it's part of my brand. It would be like $200 for the first month, and then I assess things from there. Now, for when I was doing these type of books and the early education books, for example, I was budgeting much less per book, around $50 to $100 per month, for the first month, and then assessing things from there. So that's one way that you can approach making sure that you pick the best books that have the best chance of making sales in the long term, and just cutting off the ones that aren't working. Instead of getting emotionally attached to 1 or 2 products, this is a much superior approach in my opinion. All right, so let's talk about what I think your best investments are in terms of time and money and seeing a return on that time and money. Canva is good. It's fine. Like it is what it is. It's like $10 a month or something, or even free. You wouldn't want to use it for free or pro elements because your book is probably going to get blocked or get your account in trouble, which has been spoken about recently. But you can use it if you're using your own elements. You can use it for text placement, give your designer ideas, test out different color combinations. You can use it to see how your book is going to look in a thumbnail format. Canva is really good. It's a pretty solid choice. Fiverr is another good choice if you're looking to have really simple book covers made. $15, $20, like the math workbook that I showed you. It was only $15 or $20 or $25. Really good investment, especially if you can go ahead and edit those files yourself to create more books in a series. Software that allows you to create multiple books, and software that speeds up difficult content creation for you. So if you take a look at things like, I think the self-publishing titans they've got more software coming out. The software that I promote, I truly believe is one of the best investments that you can make in terms of making multiple books and increasing your chance of making sales. Because the reality is, even if you don't like software, it's still a great pursuit for making books in making more books in multiple niches. Because if you invest $200 into a coloring book, which is going to be more than that probably if you're having it hand drawn, for example, you're going to create one book, and by the time that you've created one book, you could have created 20 using one of these pieces of software. That's just the reality. That's why I promote it. That's why I like using software myself. AI stuff, I've got maybe, I don't know, like I don't use it. So we're talking ChatGPT and Midjourney and all those other image creation places. And I if you're doing AI, then yeah, it's a good return on that investment because you can create multiple books quicker for a low cost. It just takes more time, I suppose. Whatever. In terms of time and social media, TikTok has been quite good for me recently. I did a video on collecting emails from TikTok, and I've also started getting in the literal thousands of views for my main brand on one of my TikTok accounts now, which again, I don't know if it's specifically led to making sales. I've not tracked that or got that far into that area of things just yet. But, this is taking me like 10 minutes a day to make like 3 videos. It's really easy to do. There's an art to it, kind of. I will go into this in more detail in other videos when I've had more success with it. But I think in terms of social media, TikTok is a really good one. And obviously Amazon ads as well is obviously a good one. So in red here, we have what I think is good, but not necessary for the vast majority of people. Helium 10 or any type of niche research tool, you don't need it at all. You will never need it. I've got Helium 10 that I just use for Cerebro. You don't need it. You don't need it at all. If I think they had a feature that I think is worth having, then I will promote it again. But at the moment, I just don't think it. Hiring illustrators, expensive pursuit. Again, if you're working on that premium brand, it's going to be probably a necessity if you're doing, going full on for this. High content books. A lot of people talk about high content books like like every single high content book sells. And one thing that people don't know about me is that I've been the high content route before. The vast majority of people, I started out writing my own books, high content books, and about 1 in 3 of them were selling. Okay, so that's reality. And if you're hiring someone to create high content books and you're spending more on those advertising campaigns, it is still a big risk. No matter what anyone says, it's still a risk because the money that's involved is much higher than a lower content or medium content book. And any niche research tool, like again, like if you watch my channel, you know that I don't promote any type of niche research software, and I don't think you need it. I've never needed it, and I've made many thousands of sales on Amazon, and you don't need it either. Yes, there's a place for it. Like if you are truly stuck and you need some inspiration, then you can use it. But none of these tools are factual information in terms of search results on Amazon. So I don't see the point. I don't see the point. But you could use it. I just don't recommend it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I know it's been a long one. Thank you for watching the entirety of the video. If you got there, hopefully this gives you a path that you can follow to creating more books, spending less money, and hopefully making more sales. I'll be back soon. More videos. Bye for now.